Oh, uh-oh.
What?
You've gone like real
like totally normal.
swirly on me, man.
What do you mean? Like, can you describe it in a different way?
All I can say is like, I guess you just have like fully abstract now.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
That's Swirly Head, and I am Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph. Today we're talking about our favorite abstract strategy games. These kinds of games obviously been around for a very long time. Things like chess, Go, you know, these kinds of games have been around for a very, very long time, very big
Kind
games.
of like all of our first games, really.
Kind of a lot of ways. Even like checkers and all that kind of stuff are all just...
Yeah, and also Gloomhaven was in the ancient times.
very
But
abstract
everything else
indeed.
was pretty themeless.
Yes, indeed. But nonetheless, there are tons of different abstract strategy games. Some kind of like a chess where they don't really have much of a theme. They're kind of just pieces on a board. But sometimes they have really strong themes or they have really, really great productions. Abstract strategy games are kind of all over the map. And so these are going to be our favorite, what we consider to be abstract strategy games. And let us know as you're down in the comments below. Let's get into it. Number 10 is going to be Project L. Project L is kind of like one of my go-to gateway games at this point because of the fact that it's intuitive and it's simple and it's pretty. Project L has no theme, hence it being on an abstract list. There's just no theme, it's just shapes that you're filling in these voids with. But this game is very intuitive because it just makes sense to people. You have these kind of dual layer cards, which are really cool, and they have a void in the middle of them, and then you have these nice acrylic pieces, which are very lovely colored. And then you basically have to fill in that void with these pieces. It just makes sense to people. People understand, oh, there's these pieces, I have this little thing, I need to fill that in with that. People just get that. And I think it's important for a really good gateway game, is finding something that's very intuitive for people to do. And that's it in the game. You're basically filling out these cards. These cards a lot of times will give you more of these pieces so you have more options. As the game goes on, you can basically be working on bigger and harder cards to fill in. You're getting points for doing that, but that's the whole game. It's just this very pretty, simple, abstract game where you're taking these acrylic pieces and filling in these kind of voids on these cards and then turning them in for points and getting more pieces. That's the whole thing. It's very intuitive, it's very easy. The pieces are all acrylic, and so they feel really nice. They kind of click-clack together, which is very, very satisfying. They're just outstanding. I really, really love Project L. I think it's a perfect gateway game to kind of get people into the hobby. And it's really good, but it's just abstract goodness. There's nothing else really going on.
All right, next up we have War Chest. This is a abstract kind of war-style battlefield game where you and your opponent are going to have different units that are these really kind of nice weighty chips. And they're going to depict like pikemen and various cavalry units and stuff. And what's kind of fun is these are based on historical types of soldiers, and you can even play kind of recommended sets like these 4 unit types versus these 4 unit types, because that was the battle of name British field somewhere, right? So you are going to be having these different units, and this is a bag builder because you're only going to start with certain chips in your bag. And every round you're going to draw out 3 of these chips, which are going to be used to either put a unit out onto the board to then start moving around and attacking each other. You can use chips to recruit one of the chips that's in your kind of reserve pool, which is then going to go in your bag and make it maybe more likely that you draw a certain unit type, and different things like that. So you have that kind of interesting kind of figuring out the economy of your bag to try to make use of the units you have, because if I have a cavalry unit on the board and I don't draw any of that type of unit into my hand, I can't activate that unit that round. So it can be kind of important and tricky to manage. And then as you're losing your units, they go out of the game. So you have a limited supply to work with. So what you're trying to do is trying to gain influence over 6 of these kind of scoring areas. If you gain influence over 1, you can start to spawn your units in that area, which is really useful. But of course you have your opponent who's coming out there with asymmetric units, different abilities, different ways to attack, maybe from a range, or they have a cavalry unit that can move a lot further, and then also maybe attack on the same turn. So you're really trying to counter what you have coming against you, and using the abilities of your various unit types to be as kind of strategic as possible in blocking, moving, attacking, and, you know, usurping someone's space if they have control of it to get to 6 areas first and kind of dominate the battlefield.
This is going to be Blue Lagoon. Blue Lagoon does have a lovely theme. It's kind of like Polynesian Moana themed, but like realistically, it could have been anything. And so, but they did, Blue Orange put some very nice art on it, very nice pieces, but ultimately it's just an abstract game where you are basically putting out your pieces. On your turn, you will simply put out a new piece. Your piece can either be a person on a boat or a person kind of walking on the land. And you basically have to put your pieces in a line. They have to be adjacent to one of your other pieces. And you're building out these kind of like lines, trying to explore the various islands, getting natural resources. These are uninhabited islands, and so you're kind of just going around and settling on these islands. And the game takes place kind of, there's 2 rounds of the game, and they kind of are 2 separate games, because in the first game, you're coming in from the side of the board because you are discovering these set of islands. So you're coming through boats, you're coming in, you're kind of trying to like cut each other off and trying to get to the spot with the best resources because there's some like set collection going on there. But also one thing you do is you put down these little houses, these little huts on these certain spots. And so after the first round of the game, you will score out the game, and then you will take off all your pieces off the board with the exception of your little houses. And then now the second round of the game, it plays out exactly the same in terms of you're putting pieces down. You have to put them next to another piece on another one of your pieces on the board, except for now you have to go out from your settlements. Because basically at this point you've settled this land, and then now you are spreading out again and again, trying to do the same kind of set collection, trying to hit a whole bunch of the different islands. It's very abstract. It's just that, it's just you putting your pieces in a line. That's really it. It could have been anything. This one happens to have a very nice theme, a very pretty theme, but nonetheless, it's just an abstract game where you're putting out pieces. It could have been discs on basically a pretty plain board, but nonetheless, it's really, really good. It's just, again, very, very simple. You're just putting out pieces. There's nothing else really to the game, but it's very, very fun, and we like it a lot. Blue Lagoon is awesome.
Our next up is Azul. This is a classic. You know, it's been around for the last 10 or so years, and it's just been really very popular. There's been now 4 or 5 versions, including Azul Mini. There's a mini version of the Summer Pavilion version of Azul. There's a whole bunch of games, but it all started with the original Azul, which is a kind of a nice chunky tile drafting game where we're all making mosaics and we're kind of going to these different factories that are holding these different tiles. And we're drafting them. And if you take from a tile, you have to take all of the same color. So if there's 3 reds, for example, I have to take all 3 of them. I can't take less. And you have to put them into one of the rows in your board. The top row only takes 1 to fill up, the second one 2, and on and on and on. And if at the end of the kind of drafting phase, any of your rows are full, you'll bring one of those tiles over and place it onto the matching spot of your kind of completed mosaic board, and score points based on the kind of groupings and things that you make like that. You're hoping to complete rows and columns or all of one color to get bonus points. And this is one that I think just kind of continues to exist, continues to have new versions, including Azul Duel, which just came out recently, because there's a simplicity and an interest in the drafting. It's like we're all gunning for the same colors. We might all need the same colors at the same time. There's only a limited amount of certain colors that come out of that bag each round, so you're trying to do the best with what you can based on what tiles are available this round. And again, you have the whole thing where you have to take all of a color. If I'm taking from the center, I take 6 of a color for some reason. If I can't place all those in a row, any leftovers have to go kind of to my bottom. They're gonna score me negative points because I'm dropping tiles and breaking things like that. So you can really mess with your opponents and trying to set it up so that they take one of these large hauls of tiles, none of which are, only few of which they can actually use to try to kind of make them take as many negatives as possible. So it can be very tactical in its very simple way where you're sort of drafting tiles, placing tiles, scoring tiles, but there's a lot of kind of ways to mess with each other and find depths of strategy that you didn't maybe necessarily recognize. I think it's what makes that game kind of an evergreen.
Number 6, I believe, had a different version of the game, but they changed the theme to kittens, and this is gonna be Boop. Boop straight up is an abstract strategy game. And again, if you're one of those people who always says theme doesn't matter, go talk to people who made Boop, because they've made a ton of money, and it is because it is cat themed. And I believe they tried to make this game once before and it wasn't really catching on. They changed it to the theme they changed it to, and now they've made 3 of them because they've been such a big hit. So don't tell me theme doesn't matter, dang it. Boop is great, but Boop is just an abstract strategy game. In this world, you are kittens and you're up on a bed, and whenever you put your piece next to another piece on the board, it will boop them because the cat kind of pounces on the bed and then boops the other cats off of it, or boops other cats in kind of outward directioning. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get 3 of your kittens in a line, because if you do, you will take them off the board and you will turn them into cats. And cats are great because cats cannot get booped by kittens because they're big. They can boop other cats, and you win the game by getting 3 of your cats in a row. But again, whenever you place your piece down, you will always boop the stuff around it, unless maybe if there's a cat here and a cat here and you put here, this will block. You can't like boop through other cats or kittens. But nonetheless, it's hard to, you have to kind of set yourself up to be able to get those in line. Maybe you can boop something into a line of 3, or again, boop it in a situation where it's getting blocked, and so therefore it can't really actually move. But your opponent's trying to do the same thing. So you're constantly, it's just tactical little game where you're booping each other off the bed, you're booping each other out of these lines, trying to upgrade your kittens into cats. But ultimately, it's just an abstract strategy game that I think was just like red and black discs to begin with, and it kind of didn't catch on because it needed a theme, and this one is a great theme. They now have made Boop, which is like a Halloween themed one, which has these little ghost cats, which are super cool. There's also Boop the Halls, which is like a Christmas themed one where there's like ornaments you're booping around to. I love Boop. I love all of them. I will buy every single one of them. I don't care. I absolutely love this game. It's a great abstract strategy game, and it's cute to boot.
All right, next up is number 9. This is pretty abstract, as it's just numbers that are turned into polyomino shapes that you are then trying to fit in as efficient a way as possible to build up and stack on top of each other. So one thing we really like about number 9 is that everybody is playing all at the same time. So we have a deck of cards that has numbers 0 through 9. There's 2 copies of each, and there's enough tiles of those numbers for everyone to play all of their tiles. So if the 1 comes up, everyone will grab one of their 1s, place it down onto the table and start building out from there. Now, building out and stuff is fine, but it's not actually worth anything if it's on the table itself. In order to score points, you need to build up. You need to start stacking up. The tricky bit is that you can't ever stack something on top of, empty air. So you have to make sure that if I'm laying a tile up on a higher level, it has to be completely supported by tiles underneath. It has to be touching 2 different tiles. And then anything on that kind of first floor off the ground will score the value of the number itself. So if I place a 4, it'll be worth 4 points, and 9 will be worth 9 points, and things like that. If you go up another level from there, every number that's on that level will be its value times 2, and then times 3 if you go another level up and stuff like that. So it is so fun to me to see all of us play the same numbers in the same order based on that deck of cards, but we'll end up with very different situations because the numbers create these odd shapes, and how you kind of see these things fitting together might be very different from each other. So I think it's really, really cool. Anytime you have a game where it's like, hey, you have the same action availability at the same time, and you end up with very different results.
Number 4 is going to be Dragon Castle. This is a Mahjong-inspired game. Mahjong is obviously a very classically, very famous and classic abstract strategy game. And this one is Mahjong-inspired, where you're gonna have a central board that has these tiles that look like Mahjong tiles. And you're basically gonna be drafting 2 of these matching tiles from the board, and you can draft any ones you want as long as they have an open, long, and free. Basically, there's nothing on this side of it. You can draft that tile. You're drafting 2 matching tiles, and then you're putting them down onto your shrine board. And then basically, once you have 4 of the same color, they don't have to be the exact same symbols, but they have to be the same color, you will then flip them face down and you will gain points for doing that. Now, you get more points if you flip down more than 4 at the same time. So a lot of times you're building out your board in a way where things are very close but not quite adjacent. So you can hopefully put kind of a keystone piece in the middle and then flip over like 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that and get a lot more points. Also, as you flip these over, you'll be getting these shrine kind of roofs. And you can also, when you flip certain ones over, you can put these shrine roofs on top of spots, and then basically however high up they are, they will gain you more points. The problem is once there's a roof on a spot, you then can't put any tiles on top of it. And it's this really interesting kind of little puzzle that you're doing, because whenever you're flipping stuff over, it's always as if you're looking at it straight down. So the height of these various colors doesn't actually matter. If there's like a blue one here, blue one here, blue one here, and then a blue one here, but it's up on the 3rd level, from a top-down view, they're still adjacent, so they would still all flip. So you have to kind of think about it in this kind of weird 3D way. But it's very, very simple. And you're just drafting these tiles, putting them out, trying to flip certain things in kind of advantageous ways, because once they're flipped, then you can put other tiles on top of them. So you're kind of trying to manage all of that while trying to like deny your opponents that maybe Mike really wants a lot of yellow. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take these yellow ones because I know he's gonna want those. It's just very, very tactical, very fun, very, very pretty, got really, really great production value. It's really, really great. And this is a game that I feel like hit pretty good when it first came out, but I feel like no one ever talks about Dragon Castle anymore, and it's still an absolutely banger of an abstract strategy game.
All right, next up is Yinsh. We wouldn't be making an abstract list without mentioning one of the gift games, which are all these abstracts. And Yinsh is a pretty popular one that has 2 players squaring off to try to make these kind of rows of 5 in a row of these markers. And you have these ring pieces that on a turn you can take one of your rings and kind of move it in a straight line as far as you wish to. But of course, if you run into another ring, you have to stop. And you're gonna leave behind a marker of your color. But these markers are double-sided, one for each player color. And if you jump over any markers, you're gonna flip them to their opposite sides. Now, ideally, I'm flipping over a bunch of my opponent's markers that are all lined up in a row, so I can flip them all to my color, and maybe that makes a row of 5 for me, or makes it a lot easier for me to get to that row of 5. And then with where you end up with these rings, you're kind of helping block, because again, a ring can't jump over a ring. And if you make a row of 5, that's awesome, you get to score a point. The point is one of your rings. You have 5 on the board to start. You're trying to be the first one of 3 rings, but every time you score and get closer to your goal, you also have 1 less piece on the board to help move and block with strategically to make these markers. So it kind of is a self-leveling game in that the closer you are to victory, the weaker you become, giving your opponent advantage and maybe a chance to catch up. But I really enjoy the double-sided markers and being able to flip them over strategically, and hopefully not running into a situation where you're gonna hurt yourself more than you help, or getting stuck in a corner of the board so you can't get out because your opponent's kind of blocked you in and stuff like that. There's a lot of really interesting tactical decisions to make in a game that's very minimalistic, but also kind of very beautiful in its way.
Number 2 is going to be a great game. This is, well, obviously, this is gonna be Santorini. Good job, Nick. It's gonna be a great game. Clearly it is. It's our number 2. Santorini is a great abstract strategy game. This is, again, an abstract strategy game that has a lot of production value to it. It's originally by Roxley and Spin Master. And it's a very simple game. This is a game where you have 2 builders and you're building on this kind of grid board. And basically on your turn, you can move one of your builders and then build in one of the 8 spots around them. You can build a building tile on the ground, or you can build like a 2nd floor on a building or a 3rd floor, and then On the third floor, you can put a little dome, the kind of classic white and blue domed buildings from Santorini. It's very pretty. I've never been to Santorini. Go. It's incredible. It's so beautiful. But nonetheless, that's what you're trying to do. So when you're moving around, you can also move up one level, and your goal is to try to get one of your workers to the third level of a building. If you do, you win the game. So that's the point of putting one of those domes on top of the building, is because then no one can stand there. So it's just this tactical game where you're moving around, building buildings, trying to slowly move up them, and basically move up them in a way where your opponent won't be able to block you by putting a dome on top of one of the buildings. That's the game. It's very, very simple. You move and you build. You move and then you build. That's the entire game. That's all you can do. It's just very, very tactical. Great abstract strategy game. But in Santorini, they also added all these god cards because it's Greek themed. There are lots of different god cards like Athena and Zeus and all this stuff, and they all have a special power. So one of them might be able to I can't remember who it is, but one can just put a dome anywhere, even just on the ground. And so maybe, if someone's moving up, you're like, boom, put a dome on a second building, on a second story. Don't even need to wait for the fourth. Just go boom, right there. And both of you will have these god powers, and these god powers really change up the game. It really make it interesting. Santorini, just with the base game, no god powers, is super good, and it's just a pure abstract strategy game that's really good with this very beautiful production. But adding those god cards spices it up. It's very, very fun. I really, really love Santorini. It's an abstract strategy game that we just don't play enough, and I really, really wish we did, because it's one of the all-time greats. I honestly believe that. Santorini is awesome. The base game is great. With the god cards, it's even better. It's an absolute banger.
Our number one is gonna be Mythic Mischief. This is a kind of chess-like game. You're moving around a board and you're each playing a different faction in this kind of magical school. So you're vampires and werewolves and witches and things. And you are all hanging out in a library after hours where you should not be. And you are sneaking around, and there's this tome keeper, the kind of, Argus Filch of it all, who's looking, going kind of through their paces, looking after the library, making sure no kids are hanging out after hours, which of course, again, you very much are. So what you're trying to do is you are trying to move your character pieces around to collect books to kind of level up your abilities, your ability to move, your ability to move the bookshelves around and move your opponents around and things like that. And you're trying to make sure that you are far away from where the tome keepers can be walking, because they kind of have like a pre-programmed route of places they're trying to go. And you're trying to get your opponent's pieces in that path so the tome keeper runs into them, and that allows you to score these mischief points, and you're trying to get to 10 points first. So what's really extra fun about this game is, again, you're different factions, but it's not just purely thematic art sake of difference and stuff. Each character has different abilities that they are going to trigger. The main way that's going to show up is in your ability to move the various bookshelves and change which pathways are open, where there are walls and where there are not. Each faction has a different way of managing the movement of those bookshelves. You also have the ability to move other pieces on the board. And again, depending on which faction you are, you're gonna do that in a different way. So sometimes it might be, if they're right in front of you, you put them directly behind you or turn them and different things like that. So you are trying to figure out, based on your character type, what is, the most efficient way that you can move, upgrade your stats and stuff to be able to make the library in such a situation that you are safe, your opponents are in the way, so the tome keeper runs into them and gets your friends or your rivals, I guess, in the most trouble possible. We love this game for the production value, for the asymmetry of the factions and having, so much to kind of explore there. And the ability to manipulate the environment of the board itself is something that's super duper cool. And the characters and stuff are really fun. And this is something I want to see a cartoon of. Where is this show about this magical monster high school and all the hijinks that ensue? So there's some abstract games that we tend to prefer. There's, of course, so many more.
Yes.
So what we want to know is from you, what are your favorite games that you would consider like an abstract game? Now, our whole thing is we talk about any board game you look at hard enough becomes pretty abstract.
Yeah, it's all numbers, right?
It's all just spreadsheets, man.
Yeah.
But these are games that really kind of live in the kind of more abstract world, or the more spatial or kind of movement-based, again, chess-like or what have you. games, but these are games that are actually worth playing, per our opinion. Boom, chest slam. Who loves it?
Get wrecked, Magnus Carlsen. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, he's got great hair though, man. I don't know. I would not want to try him. He's way smarter than us. Anyway, that's it for us, everybody. Get your picks in the comments below. We'll see you all real soon.
Bye, everybody.